The scrapyard on the outskirts of New Mumbai stretched for kilometers, a graveyard of twisted metal and forgotten dreams. 15-year-old Arjun picked his way through the debris, his practiced eyes scanning for anything salvageable. The monsoon rains had turned the pathways into muddy streams. But he'd learned long ago that the best finds came after storms, when the earth gave up its buried treasures. The explosion had lit up the pre-dawn sky like a second sun. Arjun had been awake as always. Sleep came reluctantly in the cramped orphanage dormitory. He'd watched the streak of fire arc across the horizon and crash somewhere in the deep scrap, far from where the other pickers dared to venture. Now, 3 hours later, he stood before the wreckage. It wasn't any aircraft he recognized. The hull was smooth, almost organic, with panels that shimmered like oil on water. Smoke curled from a gaping hole in its side, and the acrid smell of burning circuits mixed with something else. Something alien. "Hello?" Arjun called out, his voice cracking. "Is anyone in there?" A groan answered him, followed by a wet cough. Without thinking, Arjun scrambled toward the opening. Inside, the cockpit was a nightmare of sparking wires and shattered displays. Slumped against the pilot's seat was a figure unlike anything Arjun had ever seen. The being was tall, even sitting down, with elongated limbs and skin that shifted between deep purple and blue. 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on its face, blinked independently. One of its 3-fingered hands clutched its side where a dark fluid, blood, Arjun assumed, seeped between the digits. "Human," the alien rasped in perfect Hindi, though its lipless mouth barely moved. "Dangerous. Need to leave." "Before they—" The alien's eyes rolled back and it slumped further. Arjun's survival instinct screamed at him to run. Aliens meant trouble. Aliens meant government agents, quarantine zones, and questions he couldn't afford to answer. But looking at the injured being so clearly in pain, he saw only another soul in need. "I'm getting you out," Arjun said firmly. The alien was heavy, far heavier than its slender frame suggested. Arjun braced himself and pulled, ignoring the protest of his underfed muscles. Inch by inch, he dragged the being from the wreckage. By the time they reached the shelter of a collapsed shipping container 50 meters away, Arjun's arms shook with exhaustion. He tore strips from his shirt to bind the wound. The alien's blood was cold and thick like mercury. Its eyes fluttered open, all four focusing on Arjun with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "White, help," the alien whispered. Arjun shrugged. "Because you needed it. That's reason enough, isn't it? Most species calculate value first, assess benefit." "Maybe I'm bad at math," Arjun replied, managing a weak smile. He pulled out his water bottle, offering it. "Can you drink this?" The alien took a small sip and winced. Primitive, but adequate. It studied Arjun with renewed interest. "You are young, alone, orphan. I live at St. Catherine's, but I come here to find things to sell. Food doesn't buy itself." Arjun glanced nervously at the sky. "We need to move soon. If they find you, they'll take you away. Dissect you, maybe." "They already search," the alien said. "My ship's beacon. They will find wreckage soon." "Find us." It struggled to sit up. "You should abandon me. Save yourself." Arjun shook his head. "Not how I work." For the next 6 hours, Arjun did what he did best. He survived. He knew the scrapyard's secret paths, the tunnels beneath the trash heaps where the homeless made their camps. He led the alien, now moving with agonizing slowness through a labyrinth of discarded civilization. Behind them, the sound of military vehicles grew louder, then faded as the searchers took wrong turns. By nightfall, they reached Arjun's private sanctuary, a hollowed-out cargo container he'd insulated and furnished with cast-off blankets and a working lantern. The alien collapsed onto the makeshift bed, its breathing ragged but steady. "I'm Jakar," it said finally. "Of the Velneri Consortium, I owe you a debt I cannot repay." "Don't worry about it," Arjun said, heating water on a small electric coil. "Just get better." Over the next 3 days, Jakar healed with remarkable speed. He spoke little, but watched Arjun constantly. Watching him share his meager food, watching him return each evening with a handful of credits from his salvage work, watching him read worn books by lantern light. On the 4th morning, the ships arrived. They weren't military. These were sleek, expensive vessels that made the crashed ship look like scrap. They landed in formation around the scrapyard, and figures in elaborate robes emerged, carrying what looked like medical equipment. Jakar stood at the container's entrance, now fully recovered. "They found me," he said. He turned to Arjun. Thank you, young human. What you did, your species' capacity for compassion without expectation, it is rare in the galaxy. You're leaving? Arjun tried to hide his disappointment. In 3 days, the alien had become something like a friend. I must, but I will not forget. Jakar placed something in Arjun's hand, a small crystalline device. Press this when you need me. Anywhere, anytime. You saved the life of Jakar Velnari, chairman of the largest trade consortium in 3 spiral arms. That carries obligations. Arjun stared at the device, then at the ships, finally understanding. You're rich? Wealthy beyond your planet's economy, Jakar confirmed. But you didn't ask. Didn't calculate. You saw only someone who needed help. He placed a hand on Arjun's shoulder. The Velnari never forget their debts, young one. Your life has just changed, though you don't yet realize how much. As Jakar walked toward his people, he paused and looked back. The galaxy will know the name Arjun of Earth, the boy who taught an old Tycoon what compassion truly means. 6 months later, Arjun stood in his new workshop, a gleaming facility funded by an anonymous alien benefactor. He employed 50 former orphans, teaching them to repair not just Earth technology, but alien systems too. Ships from across the galaxy came to them, drawn by reputation and the blessing of the Velnari Consortium. And on his desk, the crystal device sat ready, a reminder that kindness given freely often returns 1,000-fold.